It is time for the 2023 World Championships, and we are excited. Tonight, Willie and I went through weight by weight, previewing the World Championships, what we have expectation-wise, what we think Americans are going to do, where they're going to medal, where they're going to place. So fun time going through Worlds. We talked Gable Steveson, the latest with him. We talked about some of the things I was tweeting and posting on Instagram about UWW and the Russians competing and the communication and all that. So fun show on deck today. Before we dive in, this show is brought to you by our friends at Attack, A-T-A-C, Attack. Attack is a very cool app made by wrestlers for wrestlers. And now it's grown so much, it's into football. Attack Football has been released. Attack is video game stats meets real life training. Do you know your Attack rating? Because you should. You can get a rating for strength, endurance, speed, mentality, agility, flexibility. It is a super cool app that gives you video game like stats, and it helps you level up. It doesn't just give you a stat. It shows you how to improve your mentality, how to improve endurance, your speed, your flexibility, workouts, all of that. It is a training app that helps you level up. So download the Attack app, ATAC. It's in the Apple App Store. It's in the Google Play Store. And if you enjoy this podcast, be sure to subscribe, like, comment. I look at all the comments. If you have questions, if you have thoughts, if you want to talk wrestling, comment on YouTube, on Rokfin, like and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. We are back, baby, from Rochester, New York, in Idaho, somewhere in Idaho. Willie the Brain. I was just with my buddy. He's a good friend of mine. He's a contractor. And we were Basch Solutions over there doing some drone shots and capturing content. And I said, I got to get home. I got to hop on the podcast. He's like, oh, who you having on today? Kurt Angle, this guy. I go, Willie the Brain. He goes, who the hell is a Willie the Brain?
Yep. From Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. We were talking before the show. I was like, you know what? Because Basch called me at 5:19 a.m. my time. And so I was like, hey, you know I'm in Idaho, right? He's like, yeah, I thought I'd give it a shot. So,
well, my thought is you're still up. It's only 2-3 a.m. and it seems to be the show, the standard. Like I wake up to an announcement, like a Rokfin email, like the first word was just posted 8 minutes ago.
Yeah, I know. The other day I did the show and I included a part. I don't know if you watched it or not, but I included a part on wrestling journalism. Every once in a while, I like to talk about journalism itself and the news about Gable and the no news about Gable and the miscommunicated Gable.
I have a lot of thoughts on that.
That plus your beef with Eric Olenowski, which was justified, but I wanted to put my 2 cents in there too. So I put it in the show notes when I social it and everything, and I'm like, Basch Olenowski beef, and I'm like, Justin's gonna wake up to a tweet.
Well, to be fair, I told you 4 times the day before, let's do a show. So then
I know.
Then all of a sudden you put a show out at 3 a.m. and I'm like, dude, and you're like, oh, we'll do another one tomorrow. I'm like, okay, whatever.
I know, because I was just running around doing a bunch of stuff, and 2 a.m. was the time that I had to do a show,
Yeah, I get it. So well, let's start with the Gable and the Eric thing, because I've been sharing Gable updates out, and it's funny because my first job, my first anything was Pro Wrestling News and Rumors websites back in the early 2000s, late 90s. That's how I got started in the whole internet. I was in high school, and I was posting news and rumors 3-4 times a day on WrestleZone.com, PW Mania, all these sites. So that
I did not know that.
That was literally my first start in the internet, websites, everything. So it's funny how this is all coming full circle now. But the Gable news is interesting to me. And I've had some people that are like, all right, next topic. And I'm like, well, so my thing, and I heard what you said on your show, and I don't disagree with you. My take on Gable is that until April 20th, Gable is as relevant as any news story in the sport. We have never had a young Olympic champion on the fence of going again, when not just going again, but being a clear favorite or a top 3 nonetheless, if he makes the decision to compete or not. If he does not come back by the Olympics, Olympic trials, April 19th, 20th, if come that weekend we see no Gable, I think come April 21st on, you never hear about Gable again for the most part from the amateur and Olympic wrestling people. You, me, Flo, Intermat. I don't think we hear anything, but it is a very relevant storyline until the Olympic trials.
I mean, he's a wrestling god. He'll always be a wrestling god, and you have to follow stories of that magnitude. My beef with it is that there's a cacophony of news.
Yeah,
he's doing this, he's not doing this, he's wrestling, he's not wrestling. Even if so, it was Dave Meltzer that put out that he was cut from the roster, right? And Dave Meltzer is like the me.
Well, it's interesting. He didn't say he's cut. He said Gable is not listed currently on the NXT roster, which I took as he's going to the main roster. I didn't take it as
okay.
I didn't take that as Gable's cut. I took that as Gable's getting promoted and they took him off the NXT roster early.
I saw some people extrapolate that as he's been cut.
Yeah, I saw that, but the WWE people are speculating that there's a lot going on around him because of Vince McMahon's situation. Between selling the company, having spinal surgery, Gable has been said to be a Vince McMahon guy. And what happens with him is largely contingent on what Vince McMahon wants to do. He's part in a limbo, kind of holding pattern until Vince decides. That's what all the WWE side of people are saying. So when I look at it from the outside and say, okay, he's not going to Worlds. It doesn't look like he's coming back to college. And now he's doing more NXT and WWE house shows. They want him to just be pot committed because his debut did not go over well with fans. His debut against Baron Corbin, the fans were not feeling him. So I don't know. And he didn't really do anything.
Didn't it get ruled a draw or double count out or something?
And he didn't necessarily do anything wrong. It's just how the fans perceive him.
Yeah.
So I think this is more WWE. And I don't think by any means, I think they're willing to gamble with him. With Roman Reigns and other guys, they kind of did this where they weren't well received from the fans. So I just think there's a lot going on the WWE side. I think if anything, if they were going to say, hey, this isn't working out, I think that he'd go all in on wrestling.
Right.
And
Makes
then,
sense.
Go to MMA or whatever. But yeah, I think until, and by the way, if he does get called up to the main roster, let's say like within the next couple of weeks, I think his wrestling's dead. I mean, that wrestling.
That's what I was going to say.
Travel
I misinterpreted. I listened to the wrong people when I saw that Meltzer report and people took that and said, well, that means he's cut as opposed to promoted. That's night and day, right? One's promoted, one's you're done. If I would have known that the possibility was that he was promoted, then I would have said, okay, he's done with Olympic style wrestling. And so,
correct. And Meltzer,
if he's headlining, if he's on the main cards of WWE and they're not letting him go to Worlds, then he's done.
Like he was literally, quote unquote, Meltzer said he was removed from the roster, like, I don't know, Thursday. And then Friday, Saturday, he's doing back-to-back shows in Florida.
Sure.
So I think by no means is he done with WWE. I do think what fans are getting agitated with is the teasing. Gable knows how to, get the fans going, get some expectations, get people talking. And I think that Gable knows if he goes full WWE, that relevance is kind of done. As far as fans are going to move on, there's a taboo around going that route that I think fans will lose interest as far as this fan base.
Well, the curveball too, to me, was that I had a glut of Minnesota people all at one time texting me, Gable's coming back. Gable's coming back for the Gophers. And so that was an angle too.
I mean, he was all in on everything. He said he's coming back for the Worlds. He went to the U.S. Open. Yeah. I think when he went to the U.S. Open, it was, I'm coming back to the U.S. Open. I'm coming back to Minnesota. I heard from wrestlers that he was going back to Minnesota.
Right.
Like I was getting texts saying yeah, Gable's just having fun with people, but he's teasing and this and that, but it's looking like he's coming back and he's staying at Minnesota.
With the window, what it was because of COVID and it being reduced basically to a 3-year cycle, it was really good for Gable, right? He could get it out of the way and then go WWE, but looks like that's not going to happen.
I just don't think there's any upside for him from the WWE standpoint.
Well, also to me, another question that I have, and I don't know the pro wrestling business, but another question I have is what's the rush? And people talk about the upside. Well, what if WWE doesn't want him to go to Worlds? Because what if he takes bronze? If he goes to the Olympics and he takes 5th or takes silver? I mean, is WWE, are the fans of WWE going to look at him like, oh, he ain't all that? It's not the same sport, and he already got it done. I mean, he's one of the best wrestlers in the world, regardless of if he takes 1st or 5th. And I hear people say there's not a lot of upside. It's like, do you think his career is over if he doesn't medal? His WWE career? I don't know.
So I think the lack of upside is you got to think about how much time he's going to spend training for the Olympics, for all that, and how much that takes away from training for the WWE.
I know, but we're talking about 6 months, man. Jacob Kasper's doing great, and he never made an Olympic team. He never made a world team.
But to Kasper's credit, he was going to go to the Olympic trials, and the WWE basically told him it's now or, like, you take this shot.
Yeah, I get that. But did it make Jacob Kasper any more or less of a name in wrestling? Do people like him less because he didn't?
They weren't playing off of Jacob's success. They're playing off his athleticism and all that. So, yeah, I think Gable's a headline until the Olympic trials. And then I think, like somebody said, why are you posting basically house show results with Gable? It's like, well, because last week it was reported he was cut, trying to, follow up on that. Like, no, he's with WWE. So if you're wondering why he's not at Worlds, him competing,
I think in perpetuity, as long as Gable, let's say Gable goes WWE and he does great, and I think the wrestling world, people like me, you, Flo, should once in a while talk about his exploits, whether it just because it's not on a mat and it's in a ring.
Well, and I do think it's, I had Kurt Angle on last episode, and I told him I love the fact that people like Kasper and others have this route to go. I love that. If it's wasted talent is tragic. It sucks. And when you have all these guys who are 4, 5, 6, 7, and they're putting their whole life on hold, to chase a dream that pays nothing if you don't make it, it's tough.
Yeah. Well, it's also nice that listen, only the 1% of maybe 3% of people that ever wrestle will be able to, no, not 3%, 1% will be able to be a David Taylor and a Kyle Dake and even like a Tom Brands or somebody that makes money wrestling on the senior circuit and then goes into coaching or whatever. A Jordan Burroughs, right?
Well, even then, look at
it's nice to have now MMA, WWE, a guy like Stephen Neal had a great football career. Adam,
we're not talking football. We're not talking football this week.
Hey, I know your heart was broken. But
no, I agree.
I'm not a big WWE guy. I don't know. I watched it when I was a kid, but I haven't paid attention to it in 30 years. But when I see clips, first of all, Jacob Kasper is an awesome dude.
Oh, he's the best.
Second of all, when I see clips of Jacob Kasper, I feel like Jacob Kasper is a dude. I feel like he is good at what he does.
Yeah, I love Jacob Kasper. He's one of those guys.
In the continuum, in the pecking order, like how big of a star is Jacob Kasper in WWE? Is he big?
Right now, he's still in NXT, but I think he's won over the audience. I wouldn't be surprised if he got called up to the main roster soon.
Dude, he's entertaining.
He's entertaining. He's got the physique. He's the total package. He's awesome.
Yeah,
He's a great guy. He's just a
he is
great
great,
guy.
dude.
All right, let's talk about your quote unquote. You called it my beef with Eric Olenowski. So I don't have a beef with Eric. The backstory to what happened is like 3 years ago, I started posting registrations and updates for events because I noticed there was a gap where nobody's talking about events. And then all of a sudden, 4 days before, you get some previews. So back around like COVID times, I started just saying, hey, this guy's registered. Hey, this guy's in. And it was great. I think other people like Flo and others started doing the same thing, which is what I want. I don't view it as like,
I mean, first things first, how ass backwards is it that it took wrestling until recently to tell you who was competing?
I know. And when people saw that I was doing it, and like some people were on tilt about it that I put it behind a paywall, and I'm like, listen, I check this damn list 30 times a day. I'm like, it's only behind a paywall because I'm literally checking it 30 times a day and keeping people updated. I said, if you want to go to USA Wrestling membership website, get the information, put it out for free, do it. Sure. It helps the sport. I don't care.
Yeah.
But so for years, I've been kind of watching tournament registrations, seeing who registers, and sharing news out because there's a massive, massive amount of lack of communication in the sport. So fast forward to the World Championships, we've heard nothing about Russia from UWW, but speculation. Sorry, nothing from UWW, but speculations from fans. You have Nomad, John Kozak, others that are sharing out like, hey, these guys might not be there. Hey, this guy might have a military affiliation. So finally, the entries come out last week, and I put a graphic out. No Sidikoff, no Sedulayev. Why? Because they're not on the registration list, which is normally gold. So then I put out another graph because the Russian Federation registers a bunch of people and Sedulayev's in there. So I put a graphic out saying Sedulayev's in, Sidikoff is out. And by the way, I had probably half a dozen people texting me saying Sidikoff is 1,000% out. People over in USA, people over there right now, people stateside, everybody's saying Sidikoff's out.
Well, Sidikoff, correct me if I'm wrong, is Sidikoff not in the military?
He's not in the military, but he's allegedly voiced pro-military support.
That's just stupid. I mean,
so that's allegedly why people were saying he wasn't going to be able to be there.
So, I mean, I don't want to get political. I mean, I do want to get political, but I don't know if you do. But
get political.
I mean, are we going to ban or not ban people based on their political stance? Is that what we're doing? Is that what we're doing now? Boltikayev, the all sauced up Boltikayev, he was in ISIS.
I didn't know that.
He was in ISIS and wrestled at the Senior World Championships and the Olympics. He was in ISIS. But Sidikoff's out because hey, go Russia.
So that and that was rumored. So who knows? So I put out the graphic that said Sedulayev is in, Sidikoff is out. Why? Again, registrations. Sedulayev is registered, Sidikoff is not. Eric comments and says, this is false. I don't know where you got it, but it's false. And I said, I got it from your website. Right. And he said, well, just because they registered doesn't mean they're approved to compete. And I'm like, okay, don't you think you should communicate that to people? Meanwhile, Flow Wrestling, John Kozak did a whole preview saying Sedulayev is back. Sedulayev and Snyder are competing. This is going to be awesome. Like full previews. So if you're going to be, first of all, if you're going to be selective about who you correct, who you don't, you got to get on the horn better there.
Yeah.
Second of all, why does it take me putting out a report or what I'm seeing for you to say this is false? So then he gives me the formal statement on Monday saying, as of this time, Monday, September 11th, Sedulayev is not approved to compete. So I'm like, okay, we'll play the formality game. Here, guys, here's what Eric said. And then come Tuesday morning, now Sidikoff is registered. And now people are sharing photos of Sidikoff, wrestling_world, sharing a photo of Sidikoff and Sedulayev. Okay. I said they're entered. They're not approved yet. So now,
well, I think UWW should have made it. And on my show, I said it's not Eric's fault, but now that I understand the scenario, I mean, the system should be no entry should be listed on the site on the entry page unless they have been vetted, approved, or disapproved.
And it's like, first of all, on September 1st, 2 weeks ago, UWW said out of the 235 Russian and Belarus athletes, 26 are not eligible. So
Right.
you already know,
there's some
date but as of that date, 26 people are not eligible. If Sidakov, Sajulayev, Yugayev, whatever, any of them were not eligible, they'd be in auto denial. And they said that there's still like ongoing vetting, whatever. But it's like, it's the lack of communication that put me on tilt, because I'm like, Eric, why is UWW not getting ahead of this and saying, hey, just so you guys know, like, communicate. And he's telling me, like, out of the 150 articles and this and that, you've done a great job promoting the event. But if there's even a shot that they're going to compete,
listen, it's the process is wrong. There's still ongoing vetting. The tournament starts in 3 days.
And that's the other thing you said on the show that I wanted to jump through my monitor. It's not, obviously Russia is going to play by Russia's rules, but if UWW says you can register until the day before, I think your rosters have to be finalized 3 days before is the official date. So September 12th,
which is too late.
Correct. So I'm simply saying, well, if we would have said that the registration deadline was last week, which you can do, we avoid this whole thing. I do not think that you should have 3 Olympic champions that are, Sidakov is a 2-time world and Olympic champ, Sedulayev 4 or 5-time and Olympic champ, and Yugayev is a 2-time world and Olympic champ. We're not talking about bracket fillers. We're talking about wrestlers who changed the landscape of the entire tournament.
Well, yeah, that and the landscape of each bracket, the landscape of the team title, the excitement for it, the anticipation of matchups. But there's another thing. I mean, remember 2014 when Jordan broke his foot. Jordan had a broken foot, he plate in his foot, and he wasn't sure if he was able to go or not. And Dake was there. Dake was ready to wrestle. I do think you should be. What they should do is you submit 2 names. You submit 2 names, 1 starter, 1 backup, if you want. If you don't, you just list 1. But make the deadline 2 weeks out.
Correct. And
so you know the possibilities. But if somebody would get injured, you can have a replacement.
I do think my only beef, if I had one with Eric, and I like Eric, my only beef with him is that he came on Twitter and said to somebody, Twitter's dead. Twitter is the number 1 platform in the world for live sports and entertainment.
That's political. That's political too.
People
like or dislike Elon Musk's thing, right? Twitter is not dead.
And by the way, if you're UWW and you want to look throughout the world at platforms, this and that, fine. But American fans are a huge portion of it. And American wrestling fans live on Twitter. The people who are tuning in to World Championships at 3:30, 4:30 in the morning, depending on where you live in the U.S., are on Twitter. They ain't hopping on Instagram to see what's going on.
No.
But that was my thing. I just think there needs to be more communication.
There's another thing too. Like, again, at the political angle. First of all, it's a wrestling tournament. All right. If Sidakov said go Russia, who gives a crap? I mean,
I agree.
If you say go Iran, does that mean that you should be pulled from the thing? What about, especially in Greco, what about how many guys in Greco and women are in the U.S. military? How about somebody says, well, we don't like the the war in Iraq. U.S. military members should be pulled. Like what? They're wrestling. They're not shooting a rifle at somebody. It's just stupid. Let them wrestle.
We just had a huge political thing with people for the COVID vax and people who were against it. And there was strife internally and who got it, who didn't, this and that. Like we just went through political crap. Shouldn't affect the status of you wrestling the tournament. I am happy these guys are in it. I think from a product standpoint, from a passion standpoint, I think put every great guy out there and let's see what happens. I do think that it is going to be, well, we'll talk metal previews in a few minutes.
Yeah.
All right. So that's my thing. I like Eric. He's a great guy. I think he does good for UWW, but it is dumb that UWW does not communicate better. And I get this is a one-off situation.
Well,
no
they
doubt,
should have better protocols. And you're right. It's a weird situation, but they should have better protocols. But 10 years ago, I said they need to do this. They need to be more professional. They need to be more buttoned up. And they have, UWW has made drastic improvements. And so, did they nail this one? No, but they've improved leaps and bounds.
They also did not improve their website. Their website is junk.
I don't even know how to work it.
It's a pain. I understand redoing it, but like you go to events, you can't click World Championships anymore. Some of the results are just blatantly wrong, but whatever. We're not here. I digress. All right. So another storyline for World Championships I want to talk about. Earl put out an article today on Intermat, which is a good article, all about transfers. Transfers for every weight by weight, who's transferred. I counted 19 American wrestlers that are competing for other countries.
I didn't read it. How was I got to read this. This is awesome. So 19 Americans. How many Russians?
I wasn't really paying too much attention to that. I was scanning it really for the Americans to see. And one thing that if Earl's listening to this, what I would love for him to try to do is or anybody listening, really, I'm curious what the number looks like year over year with Americans wrestling for other countries. We're at 19 this year.
26 Russian transfers in men's freestyle.
We're at 19 Americans in men's freestyle. What do you think it was last year? If you had to guess, I have no clue, but I would bet it's under 15.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say
so. We're jumping, and we're jumping levels. It's one thing when, no disrespect to Ben Hannes, I love him, but it's one thing when Ben Hannes says, I'm gonna go wrestle for Italy. But now when you start having top tier guys go and wrestle, guys who are
Darian Cruz and Stevan Micic. Stevan Micic is a world medalist, and both him and Darian Cruz are top 8 seeds.
And so it's like, and my point is like, if Ben Hannes wants to go and have the experience, and I think great for him, go for it. I'm all for it, whatever. Where I think it starts to get interesting is I think what you're starting to see as time goes on and more guys start doing this, the caliber of talent doing it is higher and higher. You're going to have guys like Roman Bravo Young now competing for Mexico. And we've talked about it for years, but it hasn't happened yet, where you have a guy knock out a guy and it impacts USA standings. And then it's like I love Roman. He wants to go wrestle for Mexico? Go wrestle for Mexico. It is going to be weird when, let's say, we have a Roman Bravo Young Thomas Gilman match in the quarters.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You have, if Roman Bravo Young would wrestle for Mexico and beat Dayton or Thomas or who am I missing? Vito, right? It'd be like, yeah, great. Roman's wrestling. Oh, he just really hurt us in the team standings.
It's going to be interesting. And it's like, we haven't seen it yet, because so far when an American wrestles an American wrestling from another country, there is a huge gap. Like
Yes.
I think Yanni just teched Sebastian Rivera the last time they wrestled internationally. You can be happy for Seabass because he's not impacting the U.S.'s standings. I think Roman Bravo Young could make the U.S. Olympic team. He's that damn good.
Mm-hmm.
When you start having that caliber of wrestler wrestling for other countries, it's going to get interesting.
Well, if Nick Lee would wrestle for England, if Yanni would say, hell with it, I'm going to wrestle for Greece. That's a situation you're talking about, as opposed to like Kyle Snyder versus Ben Honus.
Correct.
Right?
Exactly. And that's where I think it's one of those things where it's like, Puerto Rico, essentially, I mean, they got Darian Cruz at 57. They got Joey Silva at 61. They got Shane Jones at 74.
Hey,
Jonathan Smith at 125.
I'm not sure if you're aware of this, because I cover the little guys. I could cover the youngsters, but there were 6 or 8 Americans
I heard
this year to wrestle for a different country at cadets.
Yep.
At cadets. They didn't even get into high school yet.
And they're starting early because they see, if you see that's another domino effect.
The process to even make the American team is so difficult that like Freddie Bachman, Joey Bachman wrestled for Puerto Rico this year, and he took 5th. And Paul Kenny, or he took bronze, and Paul Kenny wrestled for the United States, same weight, and took gold. Let's just say those are transitive properties. If Kenny if Bachman would have wrestled at trials, he wouldn't have made the team. But instead, he went a different route. He wrestled for Puerto Rico. He got the opportunity to travel and make the world team and get some experience, and he medaled, and that was a better path for him. And it's hard to say that's not the way, right? I don't poo-poo anybody who does that.
No, but we also have not dealt with the ramifications the higher caliber who could make the American team. A lot of guys going, no disrespect to any of them, but a lot of them going don't have a shot at making the U.S. team. So they're like, hey, I'll go wrestle for this. Go to you see what could happen. So I don't blame them for doing it, but I do think as the talent gets higher and as they start doing it younger, that's also going to add a wrinkle to it.
Well, obviously Roman has a shot to make the U.S. team, but his window seems him moving. He's the one guy that has moved that probably could make the team under the right circumstances. Any given day, he could come out of that group.
Agreed.
However, to make matters more curious, he seems to be on a timeline.
Yep.
Right. He's like, I got 1 or 2 shots at this and I'm out. I'm not a guy that's going to stick around and be on the ladder for 7 years.
Yep. No, I agree. I think that's definitely part of it, is that I think he wants to go through 2024 and likely move on to MMA. So if you're only going to do it for one, by the way, he's also going to, cut down to 57, which is, for those doing math at home.
He said that?
Yeah. For the Olympics, think about it. Gomez is going up, or Gomez is staying at 65. So Roman's plan is to go down to 57. So their Olympic squad in Mexico is going to be 57 Roman, 65 Gomez, 74 Valencia. And then if things went your way, 86 Zahid Valencia.
86 Zahid.
By the way,
we'd get a 97 and a heavyweight in there too, boy.
Another wrinkle that I forgot to bring up when we were talking about the Russian stuff. None of those guys are seeded. You could in theory have Snyder Sedgulayev round 1.
First round.
Dake Sidikoff round 1. I don't think it impacts 57 nearly as much, but you also could have I don't know how to pronounce his name. Yuguev Higuchi round 1. And if one of them knock out, that could help Zane Richards. But that is another crazy wrinkle that it's like 3 days before World Championships.
It's a crazy wrinkle. I'm okay with it, though. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it I'm okay with those dudes being drawn in no seeds because they haven't proven it over the last couple of years.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Somebody commented this on an Instagram post, and I'm just going to relay the question to you. Do you think the seeds will be actually randomly drawn? Not the seeds, these guys. Do you think they will actually be randomly drawn into the brackets?
I'm going to tell you right now, if none of those Russians gets drawn in to a bad matchup for everybody, then they handpicked it. It's, I'm telling you, then they handpicked it.
Now, everybody, when I'm with you, I think they should be randomly drawn, and I think it favors the U.S. in most cases. We saw Taylor beating Yazdani round one in 18 or 17. So, but it is interesting because my mind starts going, what happens if we get a Dake Sidikoff wins, and let's say Sidikoff, I know if he keeps winning, Dake could get pulled back in, but let's say Sidikoff beats
Sidikoff ain't beating Dake, baby. Sidikoff ain't beating Dake.
Do you think Dake?
Sidikoff ain't beating Dake. I'll tell you what, it was the worst match ever. Somebody broke it down. The DPS breakdowns broke it down they didn't break it down. They just showed a clip of Kyle Dake losing to Sarkazin or Kadya Mogomedov at the Olympics. Big giant asterisk. That was the worst match of Kyle Dake's career. It will never happen again. Kyle Dake was the best wrestler at 74 kilograms that year in Tokyo, and it just so happened he wasn't clicking on all cylinders. I'm telling you, he's the best. Kyle Dake's going to win this whole bracket.
I think Kyle Dake gets a bronze.
Erroneous. Who's beating him? Who's beating him?
It's just a gut feeling. It's just a gut. Listen, first of all, let's throw my bias here. Let's throw my bias into the ring. I could not love the Burroughs family more. I could not love Chenzo more. I could not love Nolf more. As much as I'm an NLWC guy, if I'm thinking about Burroughs and Chenzo and Nolf, I do kind of want everybody to have to go through the ringer at the Olympic trials. There is that side of me that it's like, as an American, I'm definitely rooting for Dake. But as a Burroughs guy, a Chenzo guy, a Nolf guy, could you imagine entertain me for a minute. If Dake does not medal, could you imagine a world where they are all going through the gauntlet of the Olympic trials?
You're asking me a lot of ifs. Dake's going to win the whole tournament, and it's going to make it a moot point. If something happens where Kyle Dake falls down this flight of steps before the tournament, then I will.
Listen, Dake winning would
entertain that idea.
Dake winning would not surprise me. He's feeling is.
Hey, are there any betting lines up yet?
No, I've been looking.
God, somebody got to get me on setting lines, boy. It's too good. It's too good. World Championships, you need lines.
One of the times I called you earlier, I want to bet $100 on this line. It's a long shot, but you tell me, what do you think? I'm going to give you a line to set. I want to bet it.
Yes.
I'm not a homer. This is a long shot. What is the line that the entire Olympic team is from the NLWC? Plus 1,600? Here's the squad. Gilman. Gilman. Lee or Zane.
Mm-hmm.
Dake or Nolf. Mm-hmm. Taylor, Snyder, Kirk. Kirk's the only one that you can arguably say is the long shot.
Yeah, that's like plus a lot, dude. That's like plus 4,000.
Just because of heavyweight?
Mostly because of heavyweight, but also Thomas looked not good. Plus Yanni's a factor.
No, listen, I agree with you. I'm just saying, I'm thinking it's plus 1,600, plus 1,700, something like that. If you're saying it's
Yeah.
plus 4,000, give me $1,000 on it. I'll take that shot. 1,000 to win 40,000.
All right, let's do it.
That's a long shot, and I don't think it's going to happen. But I was thinking today because I was looking at the lineup, and I was saying NLWC had 5 of the world team. They have half the world team, and of those weights, all but heavyweight are Olympic weights, and they have 2 guys at 65-70 that are going to go to the Olympic weight.
Yep.
And then you have Dake, Taylor, Snyder, all the Olympic weights.
What is the line? What is the line for Dake winning it this year?
Winning the
Just
spot?
winning worlds.
Winning worlds?
Yeah.
I'd say he's probably the favorite, like a slight favorite, like minus 150, and Sidikov's probably like around the same.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking minus 150.
I mean,
maybe minus 125.
I think Sidikov's loss at Russian Nationals, if it wasn't for that, I'd say Sidikov would be like minus 170, Dake minus 120, something like that. But I think Dake and Sidikov are ish equal favorites.
I wouldn't be surprised. I think Dake's going to win. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody else knocked off Sidikov. I don't know, but I think I'm along the same lines as you. Dake minus 140-ish. One more before we get into weight by weight. How many of the 6 Olympic weights? How many spots do we qualify? At the but when freestyle is over, we will have guaranteed X number of spots.
I don't think 57 is going to qualify. I think Nick Lee will qualify. And for those listening, bronze match losers are going to wrestle for true 5th to qualify for the spot. So
new rules this year.
Yep. Yeah. So if Nick Lee is in a bronze medal match and he loses, he'll wrestle for true 5th. I think Nick Lee will at least bronze. If he does not bronze, I think he will win a true 5th match. So I think 65, I think Lee does. I think Dake obviously does. I think Taylor does. I think Snyder does. Mason, I think he could win it. I don't know if he can medal, but I think he can win a true 5th. So I think 57 is the only weight that worries me.
Agree.
Now, I also, if you want to jump into the weights, the Bills beat the Bills Monday night. The Jets have.
You said before the show we're not talking about football.
This ties in.
Immediately drop football.
This ties into 57. The Bills beat the Bills. The Jets have a great defense, but the Bills beat the Bills Monday night. I think at Final X, Gilman beat Gilman. I think, much like the Jets had a great defense, and that's how they were able to beat the Bills, I think Zane was the better wrestler that night. But I don't think if that was peak Gilman and Zane Richards beats peak Gilman, I think I'm higher on Zane Richards than I am. But I'm not that optimistic for 57 because I think Gilman beat Gilman at Final X. Not taking anything away from Zane Richards, but that weight has some talent, and that's probably the weakest weight for the U.S.
Yeah. I totally get what you're saying. It's very hard to gauge where Zane is at in the world because you think to yourself, okay, if wrestler A beats wrestler B and wrestler B is just medaled at the last 3 Worlds Olympics, wrestler A is pretty damn good, right? But Thomas did not look right. So it makes things a little wonky. It's hard to analyze.
Zane did look good beating Soriano. He was down 3-1, got the late takedown, 1-9 criteria. But it wasn't so much that I'm like, wow, Zane Richards. He had a great tournament. But when you're talking the talent that is going to be at Worlds, I'm just that's probably the weight I'm least confident in us getting a medal in.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, that being said, 57 is a little weird, man. I mean, the top seed never placed at Worlds before. The number 2 guy is awesome. The number 3 guy didn't. Number 4 is Darian Cruz. 3 of the top 5 are from the Asian qualifier. 1, 3, and 5 are from the Asian qualifier. And I just don't know how great they are. So I don't know how Zane's going to do, but I also don't think it's the scariest field ever.
So here's the interesting thing: the 2 best wrestlers are not seeded. Higuchi and Uguev. Yeah. Neither of those 2 are seeded. I think those are the clear 1-2 at the tournament.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
And
Absolutely.
For those maybe wondering, UWW does not seed tournaments anymore. They have rankings based on points, and you win points based on what events you go to. So the top 8 seeds are not necessarily seeds. Every time UWW seeds come out, they go ballistic. They don't realize they're not seeds. They're basically a point system. So you can have a weight like this where, yes, just like you were reading them off, if those top 8 seeds were the actual 8 best guys, I'm thinking, all right, I'd like Zane to go in there and get a bronze. But when you factor in Uguev, you factor in Higuchi, that's when you factor in these guys who just don't care about that. And, they play bracket buster. And I mean, what? Higuchi won gold last year. Uguev won in 2020. Like,
Higuchi, but at a different weight, right?
He won it up at 61 last year.
Which means he doesn't have points at
correct
57.
Yep.
So that's why he's not seated. And Uguev obviously was out of action because of the war. So the 2 guys, the top 2 guys do not have seeding points.
Correct. So that's where, if you start looking now, this is where the brackets get interesting too. You could have Higuchi and Uguev both up top, and you could have Zane Richards on the bottom side.
Exactly.
But it's that could also make the backside difficult. But either way, yeah. It's one weight where I'm definitely intrigued to see how they perform.
Yep. It's hard to handicap, not knowing exactly where Zane's at, and exactly, he's unseated, where he gets drawn in, and where the 2 best guys get drawn in.
Yep. And brackets and draws come out, Friday, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. So by noon Friday, we should have brackets for all of men's freestyle, and then Sunday for women's freestyle, and for Wednesday, Greco.
Mm-hmm. So who are you taking at 57? Uguev, Higuchi,
Uguev. Maybe then I'll pronounce his name right.
Yeah, I like. Well, I mean, I think Uguev is probably a safe pick, but I'm of the opinion, though, man.
This is Higuchi's first time down
since Rio.
No, he wrestled in Tokyo. He got a bronze. I think. No.
He like quit for a while.
Yeah, no. I'm in 2020 Tokyo. He got a bronze at the Japan National Championships. I was looking at the results. No.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Uguev gets the gold. I'm hoping
I really like a Bakarov from Albania.
He's pretty damn good.
Yeah. It's hard for me to pick. So that's what I was getting at is Higuchi we really haven't seen in a little bit, and especially down to 57, and Uguev, as good as Uguev and Sidakov were, and they were the man at their weight for a couple years, We haven't seen him. We haven't seen him.
Abakarov beat Gilman last year too at Worlds of 57.
In finals, right?
So yeah, in the finals, because he took gold, Gilman took silver.
Yeah.
So you have a clear 1, 2, 3 favorite, I think, right there.
Agree. That's tier one. I'm not gonna. I'm not. I do not give guys a free pass just because of their resume. We haven't seen them. Time changes everybody. We have not seen Yaguyev in 2 years, and we have seen a very little of Sidakov, and one of those times he got beat. So,
but you do have to compare resumes to a degree. You do have to sit and look at their international resume versus somebody like Zane Richards' resume and say, forget the past year or two. Let's look holistically at their careers.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, I think that's the baseline you start with. But if Yaguyev comes out and loses, it doesn't surprise me.
I'd be very surprised.
Okay. But they're the top three. It's hard for me to make picks based on the inactivity of some of these guys. So they're my top three. I'm gonna go on to 61.
This weight is so interesting. So you start, this is the year you start having guys move to the Olympic weights, internationally, especially so. You start seeing the spreading out, and Americans we have so much depth that I think guys like Vito rather go to 61, get the experience, get a world medal, and then cut down 57. I don't think somebody like Vito needs to cut down 57 this year, though I understand why, people go to the Olympic weight the year before. But I look at this weight and I like Vito's chances to medal.
I do too. I like his chances a lot. Like you said, guys have been leaving the weight. The only consistent performer here really is Iran and Russia, right?
Yep.
And then there's a lot of guys that have done very well, but are not unbeatable.
Right. And this is where I think, so for those maybe not too familiar, if you medal at the Worlds this year, you'll go to the Olympic trials finals next year. And if you medal at a non-Olympic weight, you go to the semifinals of the Olympic weight. So Vito gets a medal, he's automatically in the semis of the Olympic trials next year. So that alone for some of these guys should be worth doing it to get in the semis on top of getting a medal and everything else. But you get in the semis and you only have 2 guys to compete versus you're talking 57, for example, you're going to have Gilman, Fix, Spencer Lee, Soriano, all these guys. If you're maxed, you're going to compete against is 2, that helps. So, yeah, I really like Vito here to medal.
I do too. And I think he wrestles a style that internationally will do well.
So actually, I wonder if Earl left him off or if he just wasn't a transfer. I didn't have Seabass on the transfer list.
Well, Seabass at 65.
No, I know. I'm.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I'm just looking ahead, and he does.
Yes, Seabass is on. So add another one.
Earl needs to add Seabass to 65. So that's 20 guys. Yeah, I'm just not, because I was looking at the list at 61. Because you got Joey Silva and you got Micic, Americans competing. So yeah, it's hard to kind of to rank this weight and predict it, but I do like Vito's chance to medal. I do think Vito medals. If Zane Richards does not medal, I do not put his stock down. But if he medals, I put his stock up. I would put Vito's stock down if he does not medal here. I think Vito is a medal. The expectation is for Vito to medal, especially
in this field.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree, especially when we've had guys medal at 61 before, you know. That being said, I don't know. Maybe the stock goes down based on what we feel Vito is. I don't know. I can't watch him be RBY in Dayton. And
by the way, when I say
put his stock down domestically.
No. When I say stock down, I think the next 4 years for Vito are incredibly fruitful. I think Vito is incredibly talented. I meant more just on expectation side of it. As far as right now, I look at Vito and I think, man, this guy is an absolute front runner, 57 next year. If he doesn't medal at 61 at his organic weight, cutting down to 57.
Absolutely.
That's what I mean by stock down.
Absolutely. The results have been night and day for Vito at 25 versus 33, and at 57 versus 61. And so he's going to have to go down for 1 year of 2 tournaments. And certainly, I don't think Vito's the same guy down at 57, but we shall see.
But he's also looks better than he ever has. And if he medals here, I like him more going down now than I ever have.
Right. Yep. Agree.
All right. 65. My guy, Nicholas Boone Lee.
Oh. That's correct. Not seeded.
Not seeded, and I'm here for chaos.
Not seeded. The top seeded is Amudza Khalil, who's a young buck, I believe. He was. I got the right Amudza Khalil. Yeah. He won Worlds last year, but he's young though, right?
I think so.
Junior world champ in 21, so he's not too far removed from being a junior. This is only his second year after a junior. But he won it last year. Who did he beat last year? Zane?
No.
This is Asian.
No, that young Iranian beat Yanni.
Yanni, that's what I meant. That's the young Iranian.
Yeah.
Right,
he's an absolute stud.
Yeah. And Musakayev was third. Bajrang also third. That's a weight, huh? Last year's results at this weight: Amudza Khalil, Yanni, Musakayev, Bajrang were the bronze. Haji Aliyev was 5th. Seabath's 5th.
I'm off of Aliyev.
He's my all-time favorite. I love the guy. I mean, the only thing I don't like about him is he wrestles so situationally. If the score, he doesn't put it away. He'll let anybody can go close matches with him because he allows it to.
Andrew Lear's beat the living piss out of him a couple months ago. He beat him like a dog, Willie.
Well, he's also pretty old.
Well, he's 32. I mean, he's 3 years younger than Dakin Burrows and Taylor.
Is he?
Man, I know Burrows is like 35. He's the same age as Taylor. Taylor's 32. He's the same age as David Taylor. And Taylor inflicts pain at his will.
I just love him. I love the way he.
No, I'm not talking about whether you like him or not. I'm just talking about for this tournament.
Yeah.
I
think he's a thing.
Oh, he's definitely a thing. The guy's great. I'm just saying that, like the Iranian, I look at and I think, okay, that's your clear favorite there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's you know who else is this weight?
Who is Russia at 65? Is it Ramat? Is it? I don't even know.
You know,
I don't have Russian entries in front of me.
Go to I'll send them to you. I just posted them on Rokfin. Rokfin.com.
Yeah, I don't have them
The
in front of me.
best.
I know most of them.
Hold on, I'm gonna pull it up. I probably won't have a clue how to. Oh, gosh, I myself plays in my ear. Shamil Mamidov.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know him. Do I know him? I'm gonna look him up. Shamil. One Dogu this year, one Urigan this year. No, one Dogu and Urigan last year. Was junior world champ in 21. So we have two junior world champs in this bracket.
Listen, I'll tell you who.
Junior world champ when Bartoldu was bronze.
So when I had said that if Nick Lee lost a bronze medal match, I'll take him to win true fifth. Why I even had him in the bronze medal match to begin with is, you know who I think is a sleeper here. He shouldn't be a sleeper, but Tumir Ochir, Mongolia.
Yeah.
He beat McKenna. He beat Yanni. He beat Evan Henderson. And he beat Nick Lee 10-0 at the last ranking series in July.
Dude, he looked amazing.
He's beating every guy we got at the weight.
He beats one of those guys twice. I'm almost positive. He has 2 wins against somebody. I think he beat Musakayev twice.
He is damn good. He beat Yanni at the World Cup last year in Iowa.
He beat Musakayev twice. One in a ranking event and one in something else. Yeah, that dude's legit.
He is very, very good.
I'm taking the returning champ, Amudza Khalil. And then I'll take the Mongolian and I'll take the Russian.
Yeah.
That's my top 3.
You think Nick can get a bronze?
I think he can. I think he has to have a good path, though. I think he has to have a good path. Because I think there's a tier. I think that top tier, I don't think he can beat those guys.
You also have guys like Bajrang.
See, I think Nick can beat Bajrang.
I agree.
I think Nick can beat number 5 Destrabats. I think Nick can beat Tavanian. I think Nick can beat 5 on down.
I agree. My point is to your point of the path.
Yeah.
If you got a first round match against Bajrang, yes, Nick Lee can beat Bajrang 100%. But depending on what your path looks like, you open up with a tough match against Bajrang that takes everything out of you. And then you got one of these other guys because Nick Lee is not seeded. So he could have any of these guys we're talking about very first round.
Yeah. But, let's say he gets drawn into a 7 or a 6. Let's say he gets drawn into a 7, right? And he has Bolkvadze, who he can beat. And then he has Seabass, who I think he can beat.
Yep.
Right. And then you're looking at a semifinal and you lose there, but now you're guaranteed to wrestle for true fifth.
Yeah.
There's a path. There's a path for Nick for sure.
Yeah. I think Nick, he at worst, I do think he qualifies the weight and wins true fifth. I do like Nick. If there was a betting line, I'm betting Nick right now to medal.
You know what? I'm a little bullish on Nick too. Probably more optimistic on Nick than some people because I think that Penn State and the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club it's not that I think, it's proven. Look at how their periodization. Nick Lee wasn't the best version of Nick Lee at the U.S. Open. Nick Lee probably wasn't the best version of Nick Lee at Final X when he beat Yanni 2-0. And Nick Lee now, I believe, who peaks better than Penn State?
By the way,
who peaks better than Penn State? And Nick Lee, in my opinion, who probably wasn't as peaked up as possible, beat the world returning silver medalist 2-0. There's a path for Nick Lee.
By the way, shout out Penn State NLWC over there. You've got Alex Facundo, Shane Van Ness, Morgan McIntosh, Roman Bravo Young, Bo Bartlett. What a squad
you got
over
Luke
there. I mean, the amount of just training partners and talent over there. And what an experience for all those guys.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I mean, Luke Lilliard gets to go even before he steps foot on campus. I mean, I think it's just like a great gesture to make him feel part of the family already.
100%. So yeah, that's 65, 70. Zane Rutherford, the beast, the boy from the farm. Seated number 2. Again, we're back to the conversation around the year before the Olympics. A lot of the elite talent is moving around. Interesting to know, I don't think he's seated, but little Yazdani Sharadi is at 70.
Don't care.
Really?
Maybe should I?
I think it's pretty damn good. I mean, I'm not the international wrestling guru, but
I'm not either. I'm not going to pretend I am either. But
I mean, he was silver medal at 65 in Oslo World Championships. He won the Dogu last year. I mean, I think it's pretty damn good.
Well, I mean, Zane is the returning runner-up, and the number 1 seed was bronze.
Who was our rep in 2021 at Worlds? Was it Yanni? Was it Zane?
So little Yaz okay. So he was 2 years ago, he was senior world runner-up at 65. Last year, he was U23 world runner-up.
Yeah, he's bounced around a bit.
So, I don't know. I'm okay. Listen, if Zane's going to make the finals here again, he should be able to, in my opinion, he should be able to beat Little Yaz.
No, I agree. I just think Little Yazdani is not seated. So you have a thing where that could be him, Zane, off the scale. I like Zane, though. I think Zane's in the finals here.
I'm gonna say I think Zane's in the finals here against someone you wouldn't pick.
The Russian, by the way, Zerbaev.
70 always has a weird finalist.
Zerbaev is the Russian guy. He was 3rd in Oslo in the World Championships.
Yeah, see, there's some of these Russians I don't know too well. They're 61, 65, 70. I don't know those guys too well at all.
Maybe not. Yeah, I don't either. I'm looking up some of these guys. Yeah, I think he was in Oslo. Yeah, he was Oslo. So I like Zane to be in the finals. My expectations are high on Zane. And I think Zane needs to medal. Going back down to 65, I don't think is going to be that fun for him next year. I think having that advantage of sitting in the semis, when you have that weight of Yanni, Nick Lee, McKenna, everybody else, medaling is very important.
Yeah. Yep. I think he does medal too. I think in a bad tournament, I mean, I think a bad tournament here for Zane, and he qualifies the weight. I mean, not. Oh yeah, there's no qualification at this weight, but a bad tournament in this field
Here,
Zane still is a medal threat.
a hand up. Question.
Yeah.
Tony Rotundo asked it. And I said, that's a good question. So we'll move on to 74 because it's a case study here.
Yeah.
Let's say Sidakov gets a medal. I think that's likely. I'd bet Sidakov to medal. Who gets that qualification? Who gets that allocation for Olympics?
What do you mean?
Top 5 qualify their country for the Olympics.
Yeah, it would go to them.
So it would go to Russia?
Well, I mean, now
that's the question.
I'm talking logically.
No,
I'm speaking logically. Don't put it past UWW to not do things logically. But if you are wrestling for AIN and you take top 5, you should qualify for your country. If you don't,
your country's AIN. I get what you're saying, but
yeah,
that
are you? There's no way. I mean, in the world of wrestling, where Russia always gets things their way, there is no way that UWW is going to say, "Oh, by the way, you're wrestling for AIN, so you can't qualify any spots for the Olympics." There is no way they say that. There is no way. Now,
don't say there's no way.
Right? Because UWW does screwy things, but they always do I mean, 75% of the screwy things they do are screwy things in Russia's favor.
My guess would be similar to what you're saying. My guess would be that if you medal and they allow Russians to compete, or they don't, or allow Russia to compete as a country, they would say, you qualified. What country would you like to attach to your qualification? That's what I think they're going to do. I think they're going to go to Sidakov and say, okay, you qualified. Russia is now allowed to compete. Would you like to would you like to go neutral, or would you like to go?
Well, we're back. You know what? We're back to process, professionalism, and transparency. And UWW should put out a statement about this immediately. I'm going to call Eric Olenowski right now and tell him they have to make it abundantly clear.
Here's a hypothetical. The Russian who beat Sidakov wins this weekend. And then the Russian who beat Sidakov at Russian Nationals this year beats Sidakov next year. Is the Russian who beat Sidakov qualified for the Olympics now?
That's the point.
Correct.
That's the point. If Sidakov places top 5 here, then whoever wins the spot for Russia should be going to the Olympics.
You would think. Again, my point, how we started the show, communication.
Yeah, this needs to be put out. That's a good question for Tony Rotundo. And
yeah, great question.
You can come up with a rational answer, but that's just a rational answer, and that's not the official policy. So who knows?
Yep. All right. So 74, we kind of got into it earlier. I think Dake's silver or bronze.
I think Dake's gold. Oh, remember when I said I don't care about Little Yaz? I meant Imami. I was confusing his resume with Imami. Okay. But anyway,
that makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah. Little Yaz is good. Imami's the guy that I think is really like solid, but not spectacular.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Demirtas is the number 1 seed. Dake is 2. Salkazanov is 3. Imami's 4. Where is Oh, okay. The guy that beat Dake at the Olympics is 7. And Jaglin, who is a really young Indian, is 8.
Here's why I think Dake gets silver or bronze. Dake has been wrestling for the last couple of years in what many sit there on the sidelines and say, that was a boring match. That was a boring match. And it's not Dake's job to entertain. It's Dake's job to win a world championship, to win an Olympic championship. I think that style of wrestling is going to backfire this weekend.
Oh no, Dake got beat by Kajimogomedov at the Olympics. Where's he at? I don't even see him listed. I think that Kyle Dake is going to win gold because he is the best wrestler in the world. And that's what's going to happen. Kyle Dake, world champion.
That close style of, we talked about this when we previewed Final X.
I know. I think that people have sort of.
He beat Imami.
To say, I think Sidikov's overrated.
He beat Imami 2-2, by the way.
Yeah, I know. That's a Dake does that stuff.
Agreed. But Sidikov beat Burroughs, what, twice in the last 30 seconds in close matches?
In the last 30 seconds.
Are you saying Sidikov can't do that to Dake?
No, he cannot.
I think he can.
No, he cannot. And I love Jordan Burroughs, but look at the last Dake. Look at the last Dake Burroughs matchup.
Do you know that Sidikov has never lost a match at Worlds or Olympics?
Yes.
He was there at 18, 19, 20. Gold, gold, gold. I don't think he's overrated. I think he is very damn good.
Well, here's what chaps my ass. Is that in the process of going 18, 19, 20, beating everybody during that time simultaneously, these two things cannot be true. And yet people repeated this often. Very smart, intelligent wrestling people had this mantra. How good is Sidikov? Oh my God, Sidikov is amazing. Okay. How good's Burroughs? Burroughs is on the other side of the hill. That can't be true. Those two things can't be true at the same time. If Sidikov needs miracles with 5 seconds to go to happen. So, which is it? Is Burroughs over the hill or is Sidikov God?
Sidikov also, when he's beaten Burroughs, it was in the quarters and the semis. It's not been a finals match. It's been earlier in the tournament, and I think Sidikov has looked very good. I don't know who the hell is saying that Sidikov only beat Jordan because Jordan's over the hill. I think 35-year-old Jordan is as good as ever, and I think I won't put on the Burroughs rabbit hole right now. But
but in the last few years, what has been the narrative? Jordan's great, but he's getting old. He's old, right? But either way, I just think Dake. I like Dake. I think Dake will be prepared. Yeah, I'm Dake all day.
Yeah, listen, if Dake won gold, I would not be surprised. Listen, this is also a matter of, we've seen Dake wrestle 2 freaking matches since the last World Championships. He went to the World Championships in Serbia last year. He wrestled Nolf in New York City, and that's it.
Yeah. So where did we see Sidikov wrestle in the last 2 years?
No, listen, I'm not disagreeing with you on that. I'm just saying, when we don't see somebody a lot, it's easier to be like, this guy's more beatable. This guy's more beatable. If we've seen Dake wrestle 10 times in the last year, I might be on that same train as you. Dake, since last World Championships, a year ago, we've seen him beat Nolf 6-0, 3-0. And by the way, he looked incredible against Nolf. When Nolf shot in and Dake broke his back, I'm like, Dake's winning the World Championships.
I mean, we saw Sidikov not much, and when we did see him, he lost.
Yeah, no, agreed. Listen, I think we're talking gold or silver. We're not talking Dake to medal or not medal. We're talking about a point in the last 15 seconds. I don't think Sidikov goes out
with the uncertainty of Sidikov's seeding. It could be a quarter. It could be a first round.
100%. It's going to be very interesting. We really should. Maybe we'll go live. Let's go live for like a half hour when the brackets come out Friday afternoon.
I was going to tell you that. Let's go live when the brackets come out. Let's do a show each day.
Yeah, I'm down. 100% down. So yeah, Dake, I think Dake, my opinion is silver or bronze. I wouldn't be surprised if he won gold.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Dake. I don't know where the Hungarian is, or not the Hungarian, the Belarusian. I'm a little rusty here, but I'm gonna go Dake.
I don't think he's seated along with Sidakov. He's wrestling.
I'll go Dake, Sidakov, and Salkazanov.
Magomedov is entered. He's won. Sidakov's too. I just don't think either one of those guys are seated. But Magomedov's in.
So the Belarusian is entered.
He's AIN too. Yeah.
Oh, because he's Belarusian. Duh.
Yeah.
I keep getting him and the Hungarian mixed up. I don't know why.
Yeah. But he's in there. He's not seated either. So you could have Dake Magomedov 1, Dake Sidakov in the second match.
Yeah. It could be a bracket of death. But I think they're the three top players, along with Salkazanov, and I think Imami on the outside looking in, right at the next tier. And Demirtas, I guess.
What random question? What do you think Chamizo does?
I'm over Chamizo.
Same.
I'm over him. I've been over him for a long time, actually.
You think he medals? Wasn't he disqualified for doping last year?
No, was he?
Yeah, I think he was.
I don't know. I think he's getting old.
Disqualified.
I think he gets old. I think he's old. I think he's a little fat. I think he's.
Tell me how you really feel.
He should be at 70. I'm over him. But yeah, he could take fifth. He could take fifth.
Chamizo stripped the 2022
upset, but he wrestles defensively, and I have zero confidence in his ability to string together wins. He'd have to beat two guys he's underdogs to. And I don't.
Chamizo has been stripped of his 2022 World Bronze Medal and given a 3-month suspension after failing a drug test following September's World Championships in Serbia.
That's 3 months.
That was back in March.
They don't give 3-month suspensions. It must have been something really minor. Usually it's a year. Boom, done. 9 months, 6 months, 3 months.
Yeah, they said Eurosport. David Bray put an article back out in March. Eurosport speculates that his low suspension duration may be the result of low percentages of the illegal substance.
Right. It must have been really tiny. Maybe he had too much gelato, Is gelato on the banned substance list?
All right, 79 kilos. This
79 kilos, again, one of those non-Olympic weights where you see and the year before the Olympics, you see guys moving weight classes, and Nakoti is your top seed from Iran.
Who, by the way, so he teched Marsteller in July at the ranking series.
Okay.
I don't think Marsteller medals here.
I don't think he does either. Although I think he can.
I think he game planned incredibly well to beat Burroughs in 2 matches. I do. I
think you're right. I think he game planned
and then got a couple calls going his way.
Right. But dude, you can't be mortal and game plan to beat Jordan Burroughs. You have to be pretty freaking good and game plan.
Yeah.
And I think Chance is pretty freaking good. Now, I don't know
very good
if and then Nakoti, That's who Burroughs beat in the finals last year at Worlds.
And
right?
he would have to beat Nakoti in the semis because they're seeded 1 and 4. So he would have to beat him in the semis to get to the finals. So I think
that's a sort of a beautiful thing. That's a sort of a beautiful thing because as long as you don't hit him till semis, you're guaranteed a medal belt.
If he makes it to the semis, yeah. I mean, that's no doubt his hardest. I mean, I think he got technically, I think he drew him in the first round of the ranking series. Because I think it was first round.
It's really nice for Marsteller.
If the WrestleStat guys are listening, can we please get international WrestleStat? You know how many times I type in, like, I just typed in Chance Marsteller WrestleStat because I want the international record. I know they're working on it.
Dude, the thing that the WrestleStat does is incredible.
It is arguably the best resource in wrestling.
It really is. But it's so time consuming, right? They have to manually enter. So
listen, I would not hate them putting it behind a paywall. Put a level of it behind a paywall.
I tried to tell them years ago. They're not going to do it. But the simple thing was the old index for United World Wrestling. It used to have a match list tab, which would solve everything.
Yeah.
Just go back to the match list tab. They need to do that. But I mean, they kind of do with the new system, but it's so terrible to navigate. Okay. The question here is Chance, right?
I think Chance could win a true fifth match, and not. Oh no, they're not even going to have it. It's an non-Olympic weight. I don't think Chance, talent-wise, I think Chance has what it takes to win a medal. Like you said, if you can beat Burroughs, that's pretty much, especially in 2 matches, albeit you had to get a call going your way, but still, I think that still gives you the talent level expectation that you could medal. And it's a non-Olympic weight, so if he squeaked out a bronze, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised. I'd say in order of my confidence, I'd say this is my second lowest weight to medal. I'd say 57 would be lowest, and then I'd say this weight.
Yeah. Especially with the Russian not being seated. You don't know where he's going to draw in the bracket. And he's pretty damn good. He's been at Russian Nationals. He's been top 3 at Russian Nationals the last 3 or 4 years. And including the Olympic year. And he won Aliyah Urigan last year. So that's probably a tough out for Marsteller. But other than that, I don't know. I'm not 100% familiar with a lot of the guys at this weight. No.
Yeah, same.
Nakoti, the Georgian, the Armenian, and the Russian. So I think Chance will win a couple matches, but I don't think he'll place.
No, I don't either. He's definitely going up to 86, right? He can't make 74.
Yeah, I mean it's tough. He's small in stature, but so
he's thick. He is so thick.
Yeah,
he'll be interesting in 86. I can't wait to preview the Olympic trials. I told Kurt Angle he should come on with us and preview the Olympic trials.
Yeah, he should.
He said he's down for it.
I mean, could you imagine that difference between Chance's stature and David Taylor's? Just the length that David would have over him. So 86.
What score do you put Chance versus Aaron Brooks?
Low.
No, what's the score? 3-2, 4-2, 2-2,
5-2 Brooks.
Okay.
What do you got?
Well, I like that. I can't wait. I want to do a betting odds show with you for the Olympic trials, and I want to talk long shots and underdogs. And Brooks the Brooks money line to win 86 at the trials, that's another long shot I love.
Yeah, well, I mean, he made fine legs, so I don't, and he competed well. He didn't get his doors blown off, so I think, you know, I don't think his odds would be long. Plus 225, plus 185.
86 kilos. Speaking of, this is where people are really freaking out about the seeds when you see Donnie 5 and David Taylor 7. And they don't get the seeding point.
They don't get it.
It's like, I get the frustration. If you're a casual fan and you're just looking at, a graphic of seeds, you're like, how is Donnie above David Taylor? Yeah. So what's your thoughts? Give me your 86 kilos prediction thoughts.
Well, number one, I think that we've seen this song before, right? You don't see a song. We've seen this movie before. So I take David for that reason. And I had a really interesting conversation with a bunch of Iranian journalists. Because last year there was no journalists on the floor. They usually put you like at NCAAs in a row, right?
Yeah.
But they didn't have space for a row, so they put us up in these suites. And it was really cool. It was really fun. The only downside was to go down and do interviews. You had to like sprint to the elevator and get down there. But what made it cool is because you're rubbing elbows with Iranians over here and the Georgians over here, and you had mutual respect for each other because you're journalists and you're working, and you ask them about their team and this and that. And I was blown away, man, by the conversations I had around Yazdani. And so on one day, David sort of blows the doors off of Yazdani. And the next day or 2 days later, I don't know what it was, Jaden gets beat by, who Jaden get beat by? Jaden got beat by the Iranian, right? Let me see something. So I'm sitting next and I'm talking to these guys, and I'm like, wow, this guy is pretty freaking good, huh? And gas and pour. And they said, yeah, he'll go down next year and beat Yazdani. He'll go down for the Olympics and beat Yazdani.
Hey, you're telling me
he won't go up to 97. He said, no, down. He's small. He'll go down and he'll be our guy. And I was like, what? That blew my mind. The group of Iranian journalists I was with think that Yazdani he's been hurt too long. He thinks they think this time has run its course. Isn't that crazy?
It's also crazy that Gassenpour isn't wrestling this weekend.
Why is he not?
I don't know. When I was looking through the entries, I noticed he wasn't there. I don't know if he got beat. I don't know what, but if you look at
Iran doesn't have a seated guy at 92 or 97.
No, at 92 they have Azar Pira. No idea who that is.
No idea. No idea.
21 years old.
I think I like Dalit Bekov from Kyrgyzstan or Kazakhstan. Makov, I'm tired of him. He needs to shave his back and retire. And Amin, I think, is a medal threat. He's a perennial medal threat.
I think Amin will bronze.
So I got Taylor. So glad that David and Miles are on opposite sides. Amin would get Charati in the quarterfinals. So I'll go. All right, who's Russia got? Bagayev? What's his deal?
Arslan Bagayev.
Arslan Bagayev. He was. He's wrestled in 3 tournaments in his life.
Yazdani teched him earlier in the year, 10-0.
Okay. Cadet World Silver in 2019 to an Iranian. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what Iran's deal is or Russia's deal is at that weight. I don't know how good he'll be, and that's really weird. Is that not weird? Is that not weird that Russians' entry at an Olympic weight is so shaky? I mean, the only time you see a shaky Russian entry at an Olympic weight is heavyweight.
Question for you.
Yeah.
Could their 86-kilo guy been one of the 26 not eligible due to military support?
Definitely could have, but they have so much depth.
I don't remember who they had last year. They weren't at the Worlds last year, so I don't know who would have been in.
Well, it was before that. It was a guy that David beat routinely.
Artur Novinov.
Kurugliev.
No.
Kurugliev. Darren Kurugliev. Yep.
What about Artur Novanov?
Nafanov. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's what I was thinking of.
Him and yeah, he wrestled there a couple times too. Yeah. But
I think this is a clear Taylor Yazdani final. I think Taylor is up 4-1 on Yazdani, so you gotta go Taylor. You've mentioned Yazdani's injuries and all that. So yeah, I think Taylor gets the W here.
Yeah, I mean, now Yazdani, when he's on, he's a nightmare. He's a nightmare to beat, and maybe he does rebound. But from the data we have in their last couple meetings,
the only time Yazdani has ever beat David Taylor was the quick turnaround from the Olympics to Worlds in 2021. David beat him at the Olympics 4-3, and then they wrestled again, 6 weeks later, whatever it was, at the World Championships.
Yes, however,
and Yazdani beat him good. He beat him 6-2, and it was solid. But that's the only time that Yazdani's been able to get a win over him.
Yes, however, at least one of them, the first one was a miracle, right? The first one was a roaring comeback by David, and the one at the which one was just the one at the Olympics was no time left.
Yeah, that was yes.
So the series might be 4-1, and the last one was a blowout, but the 3 previous, David either lost or they were really tight.
David manhandled him last year 7-1 at Worlds.
Yeah, that wasn't close.
That one wasn't close. Before that, Yazdani beat him 6-2 at Worlds right after the Olympics, where David kind of won at the end 4-3. Before that, the only time they wrestled was in 2018 when David drew Yazdani in the first round of the World Championships and beat him 11-6.
Yep. So I think.
Well, actually, no, they wrestled. That was the second time they wrestled, because the first time David pinned him in Iran at the World Cup.
So I think everybody going David, then Yazdani, and then I think most people would go Amin and maybe Makoev, but we'll see. And I think that, I said that the Russian is a shaky entry. However, I think he's a wild card. I think he can knock somebody off. It's odd to see somebody with so little international experience for Russia. 92, Zahid. What do you make of it?
I like Zahid's chance to medal. This is one of those weights, again, non-Olympic weight, before the Olympic year. I think the talent is down a bit from the other weights. And Zahid also very much impressed me up at 92. I said, I don't know how he's going to be up at 92. And from what it sounds like, 86 was a decent cut for him, which I thought 86 more of a natural weight. Sounds like 86 was more of a cut. 92 he feels really good at. So between his performance and, again, seeds are kind of misleading because they're not really a ranking of talent where you have, Matt Feinsilver is seated one above him.
Mm-hmm.
I like Zahid's chance to medal. I really do.
I'm going to take him making the finals. Now, his quarterfinal matchup will be with Azerbaijan, who took second at Euros. And I think he can get that. I think that's the key matchup. I think he wins round one. Quarterfinals will be Azerbaijan. And
interesting to note that Russia entered 2 people on their
did they
registration list. Kurbanov and Valiev.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wonder why that's like the only weight they double entered. Double listed anyway. I don't know. But I think Zahid, especially with the way he looked against Mike Mock.
Yep.
Now, Mike Mock, and it's not because Mike Mock is, a world beater. It's not like, he's not a world medalist. But he's really freaking good. And the combination between Zahid going up and Mike Mock coming down from where he typically is tells you, I mean, we had questions on how would Zahid compete against 92 kilogrammers, right? Yep. Well, he essentially competed against a 97 kilogrammer and did amazingly.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I think he's going to be fine strength wise, and just his skill wise. I think he's going to be better than most guys, and for that reason, I have him at least wrestling for a medal, and I wouldn't be surprised if he made the finals.
Yeah, I think he medals. I think my only hesitation towards making the finals would be, what does his gas tank look like? That I think will make or break. Yeah. Make or break how far he goes.
I agree. That's always an issue. Especially depending on what his draw is and if he gets a couple guys really tough in a row in sort of a sprint.
Yep. But I like his chances to medal. I do. All right, 97. Sedulayev is in. What do you make of this way? I'll say right now, I think Sedulayev wins gold and Snyder wins silver.
Yeah, that's the way I'm going. I'm going Sedulayev over Snyder, hopefully in the finals. Hopefully they're opposite sides.
Well, that's the other wild card here.
Yeah.
Not seeded. They could very well draw in the semis. And I think this is one of those things where they're going to separate them.
And it could, well, they're not supposed to, but it could cost the U.S. 5 points, 5 big points, right?
Because you go from Kyle Snyder and let's say potentially, you got Ben Hannes 5. You got some of these guys because of seeds that you would say Snyder Tech. Mm-hmm. You go to, Sedulayev in the quarters or semis. Oof.
Yep.
No, I think if that happens, I think Sedulayev wins, and I think Snyder roars back for bronze. But yeah, that's
so. It's interesting. The 4 seed. The 4 seed is Batsayev, but it's spelled funky and it's not coming up in the database. But he's a Russian. He's a Russian that moved. So, that would
didn't Sedulayev
Kyle's semifinal opponent.
Didn't Sedulayev beat Snyder in the semis back in, I think in 2019 they wrestled in the semis.
Mm-hmm.
and Snyder came back and won bronze.
Mm-hmm. They did wrestle before a final one time.
Where's
2019.
No, 2019 they didn't wrestle. He lost to
Oh, Sharifov.
yeah, in the semis.
That's right. Yeah. Gotcha. Well, I mean, it's a short story there, right? It's a short story at 97. It's Snyder and Sedgelayev. And although, to be fair, as we just mentioned, Snyder has had some losses. He's lost to guys not named Sedgelayev on a few occasions, but from a handicapping perspective,
But that'll happen when there is nobody like Snyder that has that level of success and chooses to put on the line as much as he does.
Yeah.
So I don't think if he takes a loss here or there because the guy competes more than anybody with his level of success. You know, we talked about Dake Taylor. Only time we've seen him since last World Championships.
Yeah.
They didn't even wrestle
I'm just saying, my point there is, my only point there is, if Snyder drops a match to somebody not named Sedgelayev and takes bronze, it's still a great performance. It's still a bronze medal. It's still another world medal. He's going to set the record for the most medals in U.S. history, probably. And it's not earth-shattering. Kyle, once in a while, will drop a match here and there.
Yep. I love that Snyder puts it on the line, but it's just...
Yeah.
He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 world and Olympic medals.
Is that what he has?
A gold in Rio and a silver in Tokyo for Olympics. And then he's got gold in Vegas in 15, gold in Paris in 17, gold in Belgrade 2022. And then he's got a silver 2018 in Budapest, 2021 in Oslo, a silver. And then in 2019, he took a bronze.
That's only 8?
Yeah, 6 worlds and two Olympic.
The record, the Big Bruce got 13, right?
Yeah, Snyder will beat that. Snyder wants to wrestle until he's 45.
Yeah. Okay. 125. We have Mason Paris, who is not seated. And talk about wrestling forever. Agul and Petriashvili are your 1 and 2 seeds. Zare is your number 5 seed. So you got the big hitters all in the top bracket. Mason
is not seeded, so he could draw any one of those guys in the first round. He could
also draw the 6 seed, right? Or let's be in the bottom half.
Yeah.
Let's be in the bottom half. I mean, so the breakdown's pretty easy. Paris gets drawn in the top half. It's going to be a tough road, super tough road, and scary. And now, could he knock could he knock one of them off? Sure, but then he'd have to knock another one off. And then if he doesn't, he drops down, and he's going to have a monster again. So that is the top half of 125. The top half of 125 is the most proven the most proven half of any weight class in the tournament.
Yeah. And Mason, it's been a while since he's really wrestled internationally. He won gold at the Junior World Championships in 2019. We haven't seen too much. Fun fact, I believe, let me look this up so I can make sure I'm right. Yes. During the 2019 Junior World Championships, he pinned Zari for gold.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So he's beaten him before.
Yep. Yes.
And that's last year's bronze medalists. And, he won gold in Oslo, bronze in Tokyo.
Yeah. But give me the bottom half with I guess Petriashvili's down there, but you got Zare, Agul, both up top. I guess, what am I talking about? I got my things all whacked out, but you definitely want to be in the bottom half with Patriashvili and take your chances there as opposed to the top half with Agul and Zare.
It's so funny too, because it's like you talk recency bias sometimes. It's like we've seen the Mason is so good, but we've seen the separation gap between him and Gable.
Yeah.
Where Gable just goes out and absolutely dominates him. And it's hard not to have that in your mind a bit as you're thinking about expectations for world championships. But that also just speaks to how damn good Gable Steveson is.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we're previewing this with Gable, we're putting Gable in the finals, no questions asked.
I wanted to see Gable at least one more time in this field with these guys, because
Same.
He won a couple close ones at the Olympics, and I wanted to see, if he's even gotten better and if he even surpasses them. I mean, that was his first real crack, seniors, and so I wanted to see it. And now you're right. Gable is a notch better than Paris, and it's very visible. But that doesn't mean maybe Gable's a notch better than all of those guys. And so Paris could be right with them.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, iron sharpens iron. And if you're Mason and you're constantly training to beat Gable and you're wrestling Gable, like American heavyweight right now is absolutely loaded. So I do like Mason's chance to medal. I do think he gets a medal here. I don't think it's going to be easy. I think he's going to need definitely a great draw, but I like his odds. I would put him probably if we were going confidence, I'd put him third to least, where I'd put Richards 10, Chance 9, and then I'd put Mason above that.
Yeah, I would agree. What is your setup? What are you going to be doing? What the World Championships is starting in an hour. What are you doing? You're going to be at your desk, got monitors set up?
World Championships are interesting because I normally get up at 5 and I'm getting up at 4:30. It's not that big of a difference.
Right.
But the problem with Worlds is sometimes, and this really, we'll talk about this if we do a live show on Friday. It really depends on the brackets and how things look. There's nothing worse than getting up at 3 for a tournament and then nobody wrestles till 5.
Well, you know what's even worse, dude? That is so terrible. But at seniors, at least you can go, I'm going to watch Phil Kozanov. I'm going to watch Chimizo. I'm going to watch some foreigner because you know him. You've been watching him for 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Even because I get into the younger kids and I know some of the juniors, I can go, oh, I want to see how this junior transitions to the senior, right? So
yeah.
I have some things to look for. But bro, you wake up for cadets or you wake up for juniors at like 3 a.m. and you don't know anybody other than the Americans. And our first one on deck is 22nd on B. You're like, oh my God. What am I
you got, and for you, it's like, for me, and the reason where I was going is I'm only waking up a half hour earlier than normal. What do you do? Are you just staying up? You're 2 hours behind Eastern time. So it starts for you at 2:30 in the morning. You're just probably staying up.
I'm just staying up.
And then you'll sleep after semis at like 1 or 2 or whenever it is.
Mm-hmm. There was a couple times during juniors. I was already out here, and I messed the times up and I set my alarm. I slept during the break and messed up what time, and I missed a couple semis and medal matches or something. And yeah, so.
And for those listening, if you don't know the breakdown, Vito, Zane Rutherford, David Taylor, Mason Paris on Saturday, Zane Richards, Chance Marsteller, Zahid Valencia, Kyle Dake on Sunday, Nick Lee, Captain America, Kyle Snyder on Monday. And finals will be next day. Action starts at 4:30 a.m. Eastern on Flow. I don't think the VPN trick works anymore. I used to tell people, turn your VPN on. You can watch them on UWW for free. UWW is now pushing UWW Plus, where I believe they are now selling access to Worlds.
So if I never tried the VPN stuff because I always had Flow, but
You know when I did it?
They,
If the flow feed, there was times the flow feed crashed
really?
because the flow site wouldn't work. And I'd
No
use
way.
the VPN to see if the
Oh,
UWW site was working.
I got you. And it worked.
Yeah. Couple times it did, couple times it didn't.
Yeah. Um. So now, did they start a subscription plan already?
Yeah.
UWW.
I think it rolled out. I mean, they're pushing for subscriptions and they're
So man, I wonder if they're going to get rid of Flow after their contract's up because they're there's a lot of paying subscribers in the United States of America that watch wrestling. I would say probably.
the people were talking about that on Twitter and trying to figure out because when they first announced GWW Plus and it was like your way to watch the World Championships, and I had said I assume if nothing else that ups the ante for Flow buying the rights. If nothing else,
It'll make their bid have to be higher.
correct. Because you got to figure now that there's a direct to consumer. Before there was no direct to consumer avenue,
right?
So anything they got was better than the free access on their website.
Yes.
And Flow also doesn't. I'm sure you're going to agree with this, Quam. It is ridiculous at juniors, cadets, at the World Championships that there is no freaking commentary. It is wild to me.
I literally have been in talks. I've talked to them about that. That's going to change.
I'm like,
yeah, that's
guys.
I mean, to me, and listen, to me, it's not acceptable, and that's what I said. I said you need to do something about that, and they're talking about it.
I'm curious if UWW Plus is going to have commentary. If they're going to do it.
Although they're not doing it for cadets, which is to me is just not right. They're going to do it for juniors and U23s. They're not going to do it for cadets, and I don't think it's right. I think they should have it.
100%.
I mean, I'll do it. I'll do it.
Listen, especially if it's a paid viewership. If people are paying to what, and you're now going to have everywhere across the world. In the U.S., it's going to likely be Flow. Outside of the U.S., it's GWW Plus. And, I know some of these people will come at me like, oh, do you know how much that costs? And isn't that how much money are you making? Don't ask me how much money it costs. How much money is this making? And what a better product it would be.
I think if they do make money on UWW Plus, they'll get it. Probably I would imagine right now they're going to go minimal viable product and penny pinch and keep it tight. And if they get this glut of infusion of money through subscription, they go, okay, we can pop for an announcer. We can pop for a live, on the ground post match interview live, right? Something like.
And
they'll add bells and whistles if it's financially viable.
I'm so grateful for the increased coverage and the ability to stream events that you couldn't stream before. But at the same time, it's like, guys, spare me some of these documentaries and, on the road interviews and allocate that money towards the bigger events. And let's perfect the bigger events and then let the secondary content roll out underneath that.
Yeah. I agree.
This tea is making it my wife just made me a cup of Bengal spice tea. This is fall in the cup.
What, it's like a chai.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bengal spice is just delicious.
My wife just started drinking that. I mean, not she just started drinking it. She bought some of it the other day. Chai is amazing.
What's the weather out in Idaho?
I'm gonna go like a 68 right now.
Oh, it's perfect. That's what it is here. It's perfect fall weather.
Yeah, it's nice. But it's gonna get brutal quick. It gets brutal.
So yeah, World is going to be a fun viewing experience because it's also a complete football weekend. And the slate does suck Saturday for college. You are right. This is the weekend that football diehards go out and go apple picking, go get some pumpkins.
There is no ranked versus ranked matchup in college football this week.
Yeah, it's
Not
a bad
single
slate.
one. Not one. There's not one ranked versus ranked matchup. So it sort of alleviates a little bit for me because Fretwell's Elite Eight duels is this weekend too, and I want to catch some of that. So I'm going to be UWWing it and Elite Eight duels, and I don't have to pay too much attention to college football, though. I'll probably have it on.
Yeah, I haven't looked at like the one I want to watch most really is Colorado. I love everything Dion's doing, but they don't play till 10 o'clock here. And if I'm up at 4 and I get up again for Sunday, I might miss that. They're also like 3 point. I do not like Colorado minus 21. That feels like a trap.
Who they got?
Colorado State.
Colorado State, yeah.
No, they're not that good, but
yeah. I don't know.
Big favorites have not done good for me. I've been doing good in college last couple of weeks. The really the only two plays I lost were Ohio State, Michigan winning big.
Dude, you can't do DraftKings in Idaho. I don't like it. It's terrible.
There's no online sports betting?
No. Nope.
All right, you got to use betonline.ag.
Okay.
I started using them a decade ago, before things were legal here, and I still use them because you can deposit, withdraw crypto.
A lot of those offshore books, I used to set lines for Bet DSI for wrestling.
Really?
And a lot of those offshore books all went to crypto at the same time.
Yeah.
So that was, yeah.
Yeah. So betonline.ag. No free plugs in the show, but it's a.
Hey, can you deposit crypto?
Yes.
That's awesome.
And they have lines for every single game. So sometimes like I think this past weekend, Wisconsin wasn't on there. Or like I use FanDuel here in New York.
One thing we forgot. The United States of America's men's freestyle team at the 2023 World Championship places what?
Russia won't count, right?
Russia won't count.
2.
I'm going to go 1.
I think the Russians will give us some hits that knock us down to 2. I think.
Behind who? Iran?
Iran, yeah.
Could be right. I think Russia would probably be 1, and then 2 and 3 would be us and Iran. So yeah, give me. I'll take the homer in me will say we'll take first over Iran. But I would definitely see Iran beating us.
Yeah, a lot of it I think has to do with draws and what happens at 57, 74, and 97. Mm-hmm. What happens with those draws? Is Mason drawn into the bottom? If our path to first place has to be good draws. Has to be.
Well, we got some sure things in well, I guess, even our heavy hitters, even our typical.
All of our heavy hitters have their. Snyder, you have Sedgelayev. Taylor, you have Yazdani. Dake, you have Magomedov, Sidakov. So it's like.
Yeah, but David's on the opposite side of Charati. There are 2 other typical lockdown point getters are in limbo with their chief rival.
And that's where I think Russia could mess up some of those weights where we need to get some extra points.
That's right. So I'm going to be optimistic and take America number 1, but.
Well, you have to after your pessimistic view on juniors, where you were poo-pooing the American wrestling fans for saying we were going to get 7 medals.
Bro, listen, I love America and I love the guys on that team, but some of their draws were so freaking easy.
I think we need 8 medals to be in first.
You do? I feel like it's one of those years that because Russia doesn't count, it isn't that way.
No, because like you have
no
like,
gas and pour for Iran, you know?
Yeah. I think it's Iran US 1-2. My gut tells me if anything doesn't go our way, if Dake loses to Sidikov, if Snyder Sedulayev is a semi, those are the things that I think. I just don't think everything's gonna in juniors, everything went our way. I don't think in seniors everything will go our way.
Yep, you could be right.
So yeah, that's the 2023 World Championships.
All right. So we're gonna be back with a bracket release, huh? Bracket reaction show?
Yeah, about noon Eastern, 10 a.m. your time, Friday.
On what, Friday?
Yep.
10 a.m. my time. We're gonna do a show. All right. Book it.
Yeah, put it in the calendar, book it, make the coffee. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Princeton, Joey Dubuque getting the job.
I don't know. I hear mixed things. I mean, my firsthand account is that Joe is really knows the landscape there. He knows the people. He knows the administration. He knows he's dialed in. Another part of me hears that it might not be him, and it might be outside.
Maybe it's Terry Brands. I heard he's applying different colleges.
He applied to UNC.
That's what people were texting me after your show. They're like, "Is that for real? Terry Brand applied for the UNC job?"
Did you confirm it?
I'm like, listen, if Willie said it, he's not just saying it because he's bored.
Did you confirm it?
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, no, I didn't confirm it. Like, I'm just taking your word on this one.
No, it's. I mean, yeah.
I'm sure I can go confirm it. I just had a busy week, I'm just taking your word at it.
You definitely can confirm it.
I'm calling Tony.
Interesting, right? What do you make of it? I made of it. I don't know what to make of it, other than it's interesting that Terry is kicking tires on things. Other than that, I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah,
Terry is Hawkeye through and through. I couldn't see him leaving. And number one, and number two, he makes more money than most head coaches. He is the highest assistant coach in the country, and he makes more than most head coaches. So his loyalty, his allegiance, his roots, the money, I can't see him leaving.
Who are your top 3 least likely to apply for a head coaching job and leave where they're at? Number 2s.
Brian Snyder, Casey Cunningham. And I don't know. Brian's going to stay there. Casey, I can't imagine he'd ever leave. It's just, they're just family.
No, I think Casey will be Cal's successor.
You're right. But you don't see him going after, say, Oklahoma State or somewhere, right? I don't see that either. Here's one for you. Do you know who Oklahoma State called for the position? That
for
was
Coleman's position?
Yes, before Coleman got it.
No, I thought that was a sure thing for Coleman from day one.
They called Jordan Ernest Burroughs.
Really?
You're BFFs with him. Call him. Call him up.
I don't think any school could offer Jordan any money to go be a college coach.
And that's what basically happened.
That's not in his cards. I don't blame him for asking him, but that's just not in his cards.
Now, maybe Coleman would have got it anyway. I don't know. But what I do know is they called Jordan to gauge his interest.
Interesting. I don't blame them. Yeah. All right. I think that's most. I'm scrolling through Baschamania, looking at random news tidbits. You've talked about most. Other little stuff. Mike Mock joined the Lehigh Valley Wrestling Club. Doug
Yeah.
Zapp is in at U23s for Sammy Sasso. Yeah. All right. Friday.
All right.
Get your rest.
Friday.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
buddy.
Go subscribe, like, comment. See ya.
And the beat goes on.